Thank you very much, everyone, for attending our webinar. I'm very happy to be able to announce to the whole market that after quite some work, we're able to go live with a retail offering for Swiss investors in Switzerland, of course. So we put together a small presentation, shouldn't take more than 15-20 minutes. And then please save your questions for the Q&A session at the end. At the bottom of your window, you should be able to see a small icon Q&A via which you're able to type the questions, and then of course we're happy to follow up, right? So a quick agenda of today's session. We will start with a very quick overview of the GenTwo business and what we see in the latest in the last few months. Then I would like to draw your attention on a couple of use cases, which I believe it's very important for everyone to kind of understand what is possible in a very simple way. And then we will move on in a little bit of more deep dive into the retail offering itself, right? So that we have the full picture of what we're going to talk today. So something which is probably quite known, I would say by now, in GenTwo, the idea is to expand the investment universe together with our clients and our partners. For that reason, we have an ecosystem of different counterparties, which enables us basically to take an asset, anything actually that could be associated with a certain valuation, and wrap it into an investment product that has its own ISIN and can be offered to different investors around the world. Who is usually relevant, let's say, for this business? Well, banks, brokers, asset managers, family offices, high net worth individuals, and so on. And as of last week, actually, we can also enable Swiss retail investors to access these investments. I'm particularly proud, let's say, to be able to show such numbers and such, let's say, market trajectory over the last 4-something years that the company exists. So we are already at 2.1 billion Swiss francs amongst all our products. I would say that obviously the market movement over the last few months clearly didn't help. Nevertheless, we managed to still increase the net new assets. And I would say that by the end of the year, we're very happy to be at around 2.5 billion, even if markets don't particularly recover, right? So we are very pleased and happy to see that our products are appealing to such a large number of counterparties in the market, which brings me to the little 7% on the bottom left of the page, meaning that 7% of the Swiss financial intermediaries are already working with us, right? And given the abundance of such counterparties in Switzerland, that's a real gain, I would say. Maybe a bit on the numbers, a bit more. So we are already at more than 200 issuance platforms / clients. We have more than 700 products in the market, and actually we have more, let's say a few hundred more of those products in our pipeline that we've been working on with our clients. Very quickly, as maybe it's already known, we can issue structured products across different asset classes. So besides, let's say, the public debt securities such as bonds, equities, FX, and so on, we can have more or less the same payoffs on private equity, private debt, infrastructure, real estate, art, collectibles, and digital assets. And there I would emphasize that besides the, let's say, top 5, top 15, top 20 currencies, we can also have as underlyings other digital assets such as tokens, DeFi, NFTs, even soft agreements, etc. Right? So how does the actual end product look like once completed? So we can have it in Bloomberg, as you probably know already. Again, we have the usual Bloomberg screens, this HP, GP, etc. All the information is there as per usual. As for any security, and our clients can basically take advantage of this use case. So now on the use cases, so I would like to draw your attention on 2 very simple examples, right? So on the left side, we have a simple AMC on public equities. AMC stands obviously for actively managed certificate. There we have the usual use case. Investment strategy can be distributed to a large number of investors. As of our rollout of the public offering, it can also be to retail investors. Then the investors would, again, as always, subscribe to the ISIN, to the product via their banks, the bank that they're already working with, that they're already client, and the investment advisor or counterparty who runs the strategy can basically pull the subscriptions and rebalance the strategy level. So that is already something which I believe the market is quite aware about. Now, we can have all these benefits in addition to a few more when we move into a private market strategy, right? So there we can have such a product, which has private equity or private debt or liquid funds, private equity funds, and so on, accessible for most likely the first time to Swiss retail investors. So before, for an investor, even if it's not retail, to access a certain fund or a certain private equity project was a pretty long and pretty difficult process with due diligence from both sides, etc. Plus, the minimums were quite high, and normally there will be absolutely no liquidity until the project or the fund has an exit, right? In our case, what we enable via our setup is that basically, A, the investors can also be retail. B, there is a very low minimum in our platform. It actually starts just at 10,000 Swiss francs, dollars, or euro. And the investment advisor could actually provide liquidity to his investors before the exit of the project. So in combination with the pooling and the fact that an investor can subscribe as easy as going to their bank, the combination of the two makes it an extreme value proposition for our clients and their investors. On the bottom of the page, we have a very, very simple graph, obviously. So simply put, in the middle, we have the issuer. The issuer is always an SPV in our setup, so there is no credit risk on behalf of the issuer for the end investor. The issuer and the whole investment process is managed normally by our client. The investment manager could be a family office, an asset manager, or a bank. On the right side, we have the investors who just get into the strategy via their banks. So custodian A, B, C can be any of the banks we normally deal with in the market. And then basically, the investment advisor pulls the assets from the investors and then is able to deploy it on the left side into the investment portfolio. On purpose, I left this very vague, so the investment portfolio can be as simple as a basket of equities, or it can be a private equity strategy or any other illiquid strategy. So basically, what do we actually achieve with the retail offering on top of this setup? On GenTwo side, we worked quite hard over the last year or so with several of our colleagues in order to be able to have an efficient process and a fast time to market, right? Even the collateral requirement that is put in place by the regulator for retail clients is something that we accommodate within our setup. Now, there are two key benefits for the market. One is that for the investment managers, portfolio managers, and so on, we expand the investor base, because now a strategy that would be normally addressed to institutional and professional clients can now be also addressed and distributed to retail clients in Switzerland. And B, for the investors themselves and retail investors, we expand the investment universe, because all of a sudden they have access to investment opportunities that before were completely inaccessible, right? So the combination of the two is made possible via our setup. And then how would the distribution work, and what are the do's and don'ts? So as I mentioned before, the minimum investment size is just 10,000. Well, technically speaking, it's 10 units of a certificate. Usually the certificate is denominated in 1,000 of dollar, euro, Swiss, etc. So that would be 10,000. Of course, if our client wishes to, can have a higher minimum for certain cases. We have an unlimited amount of investors that can subscribe into the particular strategy. The strategy can have different underlyings across asset classes, as I mentioned before. So we can have anything from publicly traded securities, private markets, and digital markets. The retail distribution, I would like to emphasize that at the moment at least, is only for Swiss-based investors. So not Europe or other parts of the world as we stand. But nevertheless, in the other parts of the world, we still have the, let's say, standard offering of GenTwo. So we have the usual professional institutional clients who can still buy the same certificate. So basically, the retail distribution is kind of an overlay, is kind of an additional distribution capacity that we offer to our clients for their strategies. Now, how all this becomes possible? So with the GenTwo framework that we put in place, so as it's quite, I believe, aware, let's say, known in the market, in order to approach retail clients, you need to have final terms in place for this strategy instead of a term sheet. You need to have a key information document, a KID. You need to have a base prospectus in place. So there, actually, we put the effort to create a base prospectus per issuer, per SPV that has at least one product offered to retail. This is up to us basically to register with the Swiss Prospectus Office on behalf, of course, of the issuer and our client. And there's obviously an annual renewal process. So basically every year we would take over the task to resubmit it so that basically the issuance can continue and the products can still be in the market. The annual audit requirement is fulfilled by us as well. Collateral agent is appointed by GenTwo in cooperation with our partners, so that this is also fulfilled as per the regulator's requirement. And last but not least, we will put in place, so for every single SPV, every issuer that has at least one retail offering product issued, then we would put in place a dedicated publicly accessible website. So simply put, there will be a URL, a website like any other. Our client can actually choose the URL that they would like to use, and in there the retail investors would have access to all the information about the product and documentation associated with that. So it would actually look exactly like this page here. The retail investors, and in fact an investor, will be able to just visit this website, see the price evolution of the product, even download the pricing over the last months or years since inception. As you can probably see, I apologize, it's a little bit too small. The kit would be there, the base prospectus itself will be available, final terms, and also the issue size, the important dates for the product, as well as the parties involved for the specific product from the management side and the issuance side. So, long story short, the idea is that GenTwo assists the clients. We are in the B2B business, so that will be the asset managers, family offices, bank, private equity professionals, and so on, to expand basically the distribution capability of their strategies into the retail space. And that is become accessible in a, let's say, holistic package approach, whereby all the services required for the public rollout of the products are offered by GenTwo. I think I'm quite good in terms of time. I will be very happy to have and take any questions, if any. Thank you very much. So I will go through a few of the questions which I see. So if there is a limit for the fundraise, so basically the way we work, and actually I would be very happy to have also a one-to-one discussion on the different economics. So the way we work is that we don't have a limitation either upwards or downwards for launching a strategy. The idea is that we have there is a small fixed cost that we are now allows us to create accounts and launch the product in the market. And then basically there is of course a variable cost factor with regards to how many assets are raised under each strategy. If the retail distribution can be acted retroactively, that is something that has been discussed quite a bit internally. It's actually a pretty technical question. Ultimately, it could be considered, but actually cost-wise, it wouldn't probably make sense for the investors who are already subscribed to a certain strategy, right? So ultimately, it's also in our own best interest to safeguard what's best for the investor as well. Going on with the questions, what kind of licenses are required for the investment advisor? So this is something which has to do with the jurisdiction, that the investment advisor would be based. So obviously not exactly the same requirements apply if the investment advisor is based in Switzerland or the UK or in Hong Kong, etc., etc. The requirements will be based on the jurisdiction and B on the assets that would actually be in the product. So it's not that because we are based in Switzerland, we will impose additional restrictions because of Swiss regulatory framework. It has to do with what applies in the local market that the asset manager is active, and also what is the actual product, what is the basket of the product. So obviously, if there are, for example, equities inside, normally in every jurisdiction, this is very well regulated. Then if we go into private or digital assets, usually the regulation is not fully up to speed yet. Going forward, there's a very good question about the timing, actually, which I haven't mentioned. So there's the original submission of the base prospectus. So our information from the Swiss prospectus office is that can take up to 30 business days originally. So for every new SPV that has the first product in the market for retail, this can take several weeks. But nevertheless, once the base prospectus is there, then we expect the product to follow the normal issuance cycle, right? Which is usually a few weeks, depending on the underlines. Following up on the questions, that's also a very good question. How's the valuation of the underlyings and assets done? How's the collateral size determined, etc.? So for the valuation of its product, we really have to see what is the basket consisted of. So for example, if we take a very simple case, we have a basket of equities, right? So normally there will be a broker custodian, which can be also a bank, right? Quite often. So in that situation, for liquid assets, normally we have daily reevaluation. So that means that we have a connectivity with the custodian for the specific account. Every end of day, we receive the updated NAV of the basket. Our valuations team will apply the fee overlay based on the management fees, performance fees, etc., that the manager has selected for the strategy, and then basically publish the mid price in Bloomberg, etc., etc. Now, of course, if we move into private assets, there, let's say there's a real estate project, our client normally will define the reevaluation intervals. For private assets, normally it's like quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. And then basically we can also appoint who exactly will provide this valuation. So it can be our client if they have this expertise, or they can appoint a third party such as Deloitte, etc. For digital assets, just to complete the question, it's basically the same more or less as the public equity. So there will be digital exchange or custodian based on which we will receive evaluation at the end of the day, usually with a basket, right? Whether is listing possible? So basically, yes, it is possible. At the moment, we work with the Exchange of Vienna. Some people sometimes get a little bit confused because we also use SIX, but SIX is our clearing broker, right? Which is why all the products are by definition open in Telekurs, which is like the Swiss equivalent of Thomson Reuters. So the quotation and listing possibilities are always in Telekurs. Then we work with the Exchange of Vienna, although that's a technical listing. I'll come back to that. And third, we can also have the product quoted in Bloomberg. Now, what I mean by technical listing, so basically there are two types of listing in the world, right? There is the execution-based listing and technical listing. Because these products are asset management products, normally execution for increases and decreases in the secondary market will occur at the end of day price. That means that there is no reason basically to have intraday execution via an exchange. So ultimately, listing is possible, but the execution will take place as always through the custodian bank of the investor and not through the exchange, at least at this stage. Then on the valuation, I believe we touched upon this. Are there any plans to expand to other European countries? Yes, definitely yes. Nevertheless, as I believe everybody from the audience is aware, MiFID in Europe is a jurisdiction that requires quite some additional effort. So given that a very large percentage of the client base is based in Switzerland, we took the opportunity to enable first in Switzerland, and then yes, definitely we will move to Europe as well. What type of vehicle? So basically the issuer will always be a special purpose vehicle, which always based in Guernsey. So we have more than 230 of these SPVs up and running for our clients. Now, the actual product which will be offered to retail can have a variety of payoffs, right? Can be an active managed certificate, can be a tracker certificate, a credit link note, can also be a reverse convertible, etc., etc. So it doesn't really matter what the payoff is, but important is that the issuer will always be in Guernsey, at least based on the current setup. Going forward through several more questions. So is the underlying, can the underlying be restricted to professional investors only? Well, the base setup of GenTwo will continue being for professional and institutional investors, right? So just to be absolutely clear, so the, let's say, standard setup, the standard offering will continue being addressed to to professional and institutional investors only. Now, the way we have structured this is that in our platform, when our client will basically launch a new strategy, there is an option to enable retail distribution in Switzerland, right? So that is kind of like an add-on which is why it has a slight increase in the cost, obviously, to put the base prospectus and everything together. But the base case, the base business case will still be the institutional and professional investors. If an AMC with high derivatives turnover can be distributed to retail investors, yes, so basically, there are some restrictions in general with regards to what could be offered to retail. That's more in the private asset space. So I would say that AMC in equities, bonds, etc., or even on digital cryptocurrency and so on, in principle, should be quite easy to do, quite fine, quite straightforward. Now, if you would say that, for example, there is a private company, so we would like to have a tracker certificate on the private shares of this company, like a tracker certificate, then basically we need to make sure, based on the shareholder agreement of the company, that A, the shares are transferable, so there are no restrictions in transferability, and B, that can be pledged, because this is very, very important for the collateral, right? So for private equity, private debt, and so on, investments, the way we're going to follow this process is that we will be talking with our clients, we will analyze the case, and then once it's kind of like green flagged from our legal and structuring, then we would go ahead with the issuance of the product for the retail investors, right? Going forward, what are the requirements from listing perspective? So listing is something we take care of completely, right? It's simply an option in our product launch portal. Again, our client, when they launch a new strategy, or even retrospectively, actually can opt for listing or not. So all the products that we have launched so far can be listed, but please keep in mind that, as mentioned before, it's technical listing and not execution based, right? Any limitations on other lines? Yes, I believe we touched that, right? So on the crypto space, I would say that for, let's say, cryptocurrencies and let's say the more vanilla crypto investments, there shouldn't be much limitations. Nevertheless, if we're talking about unlisted tokens, NFTs, SAFT agreements, and so on, then we would need to dig into a little bit more detail on these exact underlyings, right, to decide if it can be possible or not. If there are any plans to go beyond Switzerland, I believe we touched upon that. Yes, the presentation will become available to anybody who is interested, as a matter of fact. Finally, well, I'm afraid I won't have time to go through all the questions, but maybe one which is quite important is whether somebody can advertise product in a website, company page, etc., etc. So this clearly needs to abide to local rules and regulations, right? Normally, if someone needs to show a business, let's say an investment strategy in their own material, in their own website, they need to check very carefully what applies in the specific markets, which is why, you know, when you visit somebody's website, there is usually a disclaimer pop-up saying, I confirm I'm a professional investor or I reside in this country. So basically on our side, obviously we can always talk what we see in the market, but it's up to our client to make sure that they abide to the local rules and regulations with regards to sharing this information. Obviously, if the product is available for retail clients in Switzerland, that means that this could be advertised quite openly, but in Switzerland, right, for Swiss retail clients. Finally, with regards to some comments about the material, more details about the cost, etc., I would say, guys, probably the most efficient way would be to just get in touch over the last few days. Myself, the team, will be very happy to discuss how we can bring a certain product into the market to Swiss retail investors. I believe that's time up, more or less. Thank you very much, everyone, also for the engagement. Very, very happy to receive so many questions, actually, on this launch we did. I'll be looking forward to get in touch with everyone over the last few days and work together. Thank you very much. Have a great day ahead.